Okay, so it's time for us to continue our coverage over the X-Men. And so with that being said, we're going to pick up with Uncanny X-Men issue number 315. Now, with this issue alone, we're really going to focus more on the Acolytes and also Colossus. Now, just in case you are new to Marvel Comics, you don't know what the Acolytes are, let me explain real quickly. You see, the Acolytes were a group of mutants who looked at Magneto as their god. Let me explain why. You see, in the 1990s, for Marvel Comics, they made sure that you knew that Magneto was the main bad guy for the X-Men. He was way more aggressive than he was in the 80s, when technically he was part of the X-Men, especially now in 2000s, where he'd been an off and on member of the X-Men. But in the 90s, he was their main bad guy. Apocalypse, second best. Everybody else, you fall in order. Magneto was number one. Before Magneto, he had preached the whole idea that mutants should no longer have to live alongside the human race. Now, for Magneto, it wasn't really the whole idea of let's go ahead and kill off the human race. It was more of like, let's go ahead, take all the mutants of Earth and leave Earth behind, because he was able to build a base called Avalon. And this is where the Acolytes come in. To the Acolytes, they took his words, but to the extreme. They're like, yeah, mutants should no longer have to live alongside the human race. But also, they felt like the human race should be killed off as well. And so, when it came to Magneto, there was a short period of time where he had disappeared, but you have the Acolytes go out of their way to start killing off humans left and right, no matter what. You could be a nice human helping out mutants, but you're a human. You had to die. And so for the Acolytes, they were like, Magneto words had reached our heart. But again, they took it to the extreme. But by this point in our coverage over the X-Men, Magneto is technically no longer around. Like, yes, he's still there, but his mind was shut down by Charles Xavier. This takes place after Fatal Attractions. And so for Magneto, he's no longer technically in charge, but luckily he had a right-hand man to take over, and that would be Exodus. Now, for Exodus, unfortunately, we don't know everything about his character just yet when it comes to our coverage or the X-Men. We do know that the dude is one heck of a powerful mutant, but with all that being said, for Exodus, he believes he still has some kind of connection to Magneto, and he knows what Magneto is thinking. He knows what Magneto would want to do when it comes to different types of situations. Now, the reason why I'm telling you all of this, because today's video is really focusing on the Acolytes, especially one that had betrayed the Acolytes. And that would be a character known as Neophyte. Now, Neophyte first appeared back in Uncanny X-Men issue number 300. Now, in that issue alone, we saw that Neophyte was a member of the Acolytes, and he believed in everything they believed in. The whole idea that, well, humans should be killed off. And the reason why, because, well, humans are evil. They're trying to kill off the mutant race. But for Neophyte, or Simon Hall, he ran into a young girl who was just a regular human, who went out of her way to help him out. And when she did that, he kind of realized that, well, maybe not all humans are evil. And so ever since that moment, he began to wonder, maybe, just maybe, the Acolytes are wrong. Now, when it came to that young girl, after she was able to help him, you had the other members of the Acolytes kill her off, even though she just helped him out. But again, she was a human. And so ever since that moment, for Simon Hall, he kind of realized the Acolytes are completely wrong. And so he helped the X-Men find the base of the Acolytes and take them down. And also their old leader, Fabian Cortez. Now, he has been on the run ever since that storyline, but apparently he was recently captured by the Acolytes. And so as we dive into Uncanny X-Men issue number 315, it's really more of us picking up with Colossus getting ready to try his best to defend Simon Hall in a trial that's being done by the Acolytes. Now, by this point in Marvel's timeline for Colossus, he had officially left the X-Men behind. And the reason why, because Well, Colossus went through a lot of things in a very short period of time. One, he found his lost brother to only lose his lost brother to suicide. Then his parents were killed off by the Russian government. And then on top of that, he lost his sister to the legacy virus. So yeah, for Colossus, he went through a lot. But on top of all of that, for Colossus, he truly believes that Charles Xavier's ideas to reach a dream where mutants and humans cannot be reached. Now, it's not him saying like he does not see the ability of mutants and humans being able to live together. It's him saying the way Charles is trying to achieve that goal may not work. And maybe Magneto ways might possibly help out to reach that goal. Either way, for Colossus, his main goal is to hopefully defend Simon Hall in the trial that's being done by the Acolytes because, again, Simon Hall had betrayed the Acolytes, helping the X-Men find their old base. Now, for this court session, you need a judge, but unfortunately, there's not one around. And so it goes over to Exodus because really it would be Magneto, but right now Magneto is, well, mindless. He's unavailable, so he can't be used at the moment. His right-hand man can, though, and really this kind of re-established what I said earlier about Exodus, the whole idea that he believes that he has some kind of connection to Magneto, that he still hear the words of Magneto, because again, he looks at Magneto as his god. Now, with that being said, you didn't have Exodus be informed it's about time for the whole court session. Now, we also learned that, well, there is a prosecutor, and that would be Amelia Voigt. Now, for Amelia Voigt, we had learned a long time ago that she has some huge connections to Charles Xavier, and those connections were really more the idea that they used to date one another. And you also had Charles try to use his powers as a way to keep her from leaving him. Now, he did realize that was completely wrong, but she also realized that he did try to use his powers on her, and that kind of made things a whole lot worse when it came to their breakup. But either way, she is the prosecutor. Her main goal is to prove that yes, Simon Hall is guilty for betraying the Acolytes. Now, once you have the trial begin, right off the bat, you have Amelia Voigt kind of put in the mind of the jury of why Simon Hall should go ahead and be, well, executed. And the reason why, because she says the whole idea of the Acolytes is built on faith. And honestly, that's a good point because for the Acolytes, they're kind of like a family. And you need to have faith in one another to make sure that no one is going to betray you. And also, they have faith in the word of Magneto when it came to him deciding what's best for the mutant race. And right now, they're putting their faith in Exodus to continue to lead the Acolytes with Magneto being gone. The whole idea of the Acolytes is built on faith. And it's her saying, like, without faith, everything falls apart. And so for Simon Hall, when he had betrayed the Acolytes, he broke that faith and everything could have fallen apart for us. Now, for Colossus, Homeboy comes right back around and say, well, you really can't judge Simon the way you are right now because if you are, then you should also judge Magneto what he has done in the past as well. And honestly, Colossus is right because if you think about it, for Magneto over the years in Marvel Comics, we have seen so many different angles used for Magneto's character. Now, especially by this point in time in Marvel Comics, but in the early 1990s, from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we saw some different angles for Magneto. But for Colossus, he's really focusing more on the whole idea of when Magneto was with the X-Men. Because remember, Charles left to be with his space girlfriend Leandra and the Shi'ar Empire. And so when he left, he said, hey Magneto, don't you want to be in charge of the X-Men, but also lead the New Mutants? And for Magneto, he had accepted the job. And so for a while there, he was part of the X-Men. It's Colossus saying, you're judging Simon Hall for helping the X-Men out to kind of being like the X-Men and thinking like the X-Men. But let's not forget that for Magneto, he also did the same thing as well. It's him saying, there's still possibly a small part of Magneto that thinks like the X-Men does when it comes to reaching that goal of mutants and humans living together. Now, you do have the court go out of their way to call up their first witness, and that would be a character known as Milan. Now, Milan has the ability to project your thoughts as a light show to show other people around you about your past thoughts or your current thoughts. And so for Milan, he's all like, hey, listen, I want you guys to see the origin of Simon Hall because he was a young mutant who was scared. And matter of fact, he locked himself away from all the other people in his area. It was the acolytes that were able to find him, took him in, and began to show him the ways of the acolytes. The whole idea that mutants are good, but humans are evil. And so for Milan, what he's trying to say is that for Simon Hall, he was trained by us, taught by us to understand how we think and act when it comes to the human race. And for a good while there, he was acting just like us. But then out of nowhere, he decided to switch up. Now, once you have Milan being done, you didn't have Amelia allow Simon to go ahead and talk for himself in front of the entire court to explain why he betrayed them when it came to helping out the X-Men. Now, really, it's more Simon Hall just going out of his way to retell us why he helped out the X-Men, because again, he believed in the idea of what Charles stands for, but also he hated the idea of the Acolytes attacking that innocent girl who helped him back in Uncanny X-Men issue number 300. Now, right after he says all of that to everyone in the courtroom, you didn't have all these different members of the Acolytes get upset. Matter of fact, one of them tries her best to go ahead and kill off Simon Hall. Now, you do have Colossus trying his best to defend Simon Hall, but you didn't have Exodus step in and say, there'll be order in this courtroom. I am going to leave to talk to Magneto to see what would Magneto do when it comes to Simon Hall. Everyone else, you stay in here, but you may stay calm and do not fight against one another again. Now, truthfully, the book kind of ends on the note where you have Exodus come back. Now, when he does come back, it does sound like, okay, you know what, Simon, it's time for you to go ahead and die. But before you have Exodus being able to say what is going to be the punishment for Simon Hall, you have Colossus come in. And for Colossus, he said, hey, hold up. Before you judge this man, I want to say one last thing real quickly. I know Magneto better than anybody else in this room. And knowing Magneto, he would let this kid live. You're going to kill this guy because he was thinking different from us? Matter of fact, for Magneto, he would praise this young boy for trying to be headstrong, to try to bring up his own belief. Because here's the thing, for Magneto, his goal is to protect the mutant race. So why would he go out of his way to attack somebody for being different? Because if he does that, he'll be just like the humans who are trying to attack the mutants. And so it's Colossus saying, if you kill off this man right here, you're being almost everything opposite of what Magneto stands for. And so for Exodus, he was all like, well, hey, Colossus, you cut me off a tad bit early there. What I was gonna say is that he can live, but he has to live back down on Earth with the human race, away from Avalon. And so for Colossus, he won. And the book kind of ends on that note right there. But honestly, I love the way this book was told to us, guys. It was a great story. But with that being said, this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see you on the next comic book video.